In this episode, I'm going to show you how to get a 10-year-old to understand the whole concept of the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement, in short called AfTA, AfCFTA. This is a huge thing brewing in Africa right now, but unfortunately, many people do not know about it. I would say, with the exception of a few, maybe in government and big business people and technocrats, the rest of us do not know much about it. So that's why by the end of this video, if you're a 10-year-old, or let me put it this way, if I could get a 10-year-old to appreciate what this whole thing means, then I think you can be able to at least take something out of it, or pick a thing or two out of it, because this thing is massive. It has the potential to actually revolutionize the continent of Africa and the people that are in, especially if you have a small to mid-sized business. You have to listen to this. Okay, so to put it in context, I'm going to explain it in a way that it will be very easy to assimilate. So let's put it in context like this. So assuming there is this company in, say, Nigeria, right, led by a lady that makes skincare products or skin lotions, but they typically source the main ingredient that they need for production of the skincare line is shea butter. So shea butter is predominantly found in Ghana, especially most northern part of Ghana, probably Burkina Faso and Mali, countries like that. So let me just use an illustration to show you real quickly. All right. So this is a company in Nigeria, right? So Nigerian company, they produce skincare line, okay, that uses shea butter. They source products from another company in Ghana. Okay. They sell shea butter. Okay, awesome. That has been how the business has been going on for a while. Now, before the whole concept of the African Free Trade Agreement that started in January of 2021, for this business relationship to exist, what happens that there's a middleman between this conversation, right? There's a middle block here, right? And that middle block, let me just use this red. It's almost like a wall or a barrier. That middle block is called tariffs. Okay. So this is tariffs. Tariffs come in the form of taxes, duties, more taxes, more red tape. What tariff is really bad for business. Okay. For business is bad for business. Why? Because tariffs increases costs. Okay. It increases costs. It delays goods moving from one area to another. It's like a whole lot of things that makes the whole thing complicated. So by the end of everything, by the end of production, right? Let's say this good travels from Ghana all the way to Nigeria, it goes through the production process, they produce the skincare line. All these tariffs and things are going to be added to the cost of making this product or these product lines. Okay. So what, in the nutshell, the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement wants to do, basically, is to abolish this. That's the overarching goal, is to destroy this, actually, the best way to get rid of this, right? So that goods can freely move between in countries within Africa. You say, okay, this is nice, this is awesome, but why? Why is it so important? Okay, so I'll just show you why this is super important. The reason is simply this. Let me just once again show you. I have my pen, so I'll just show you the illustration. I think it's fine. So the reason is this. Let's look at the current state of play. So I'm going to take you through the current state of play. So intra-African exports. That means export within Africa. I think I have an African map somewhere here. Okay, so intra-African export. How this map? So that is trade between, let's say, this country and that country, that country and that country. So between there and that, between, let's say, this and that, right? Or between this country, that's Nigeria, trading with, let's say, South Africa. These are what we call intra-African trade, right? So the export, let's say, from, let's say, Nigeria to South Africa, right? Or let's say from, I think this is Madagascar, right? To Ghana, right? So that is intra-African export, right? From one to another. So when we talk of trade, trade means it's export and import. So one is exporting, the other is importing. So let's, for sake of simplicity, let's stay with intra-African exports. Okay. So for intra-African export, the current state of play is this. This is the reason why the AfCFTA agreement is fantastic. So the reason is this. Currently, let me do this survey. So currently, for all the exports that go on within Africa, 40% of that, so let's say 40% here, is what we call export of commodities. Okay, commodities, or what we call raw materials. Okay, so raw materials, things like gold, right? Gold, diamond, let's say unprocessed petroleum. We talked about shea butter, cocoa, right? COA, coffee, tea, flowers, fruits and vegetables. They are all unprocessed. So these are commodity items. So commodities. So the current state of play is that it's 40% of all trade that goes in here are commodity. Okay. So let's look at trade outside of Africa that are not that are not intra-African, that is not between African countries, right? So trade outside of Africa, that is trade from here, right? Let me use it. So here to, let's say, Asia, right? Here to, let's say, North America, okay? Here to, let's say, Brazil, right? All these trade that are going on between, but that is Africa selling products to other countries, that is export. Let's look at the dynamics. The dynamics is this is how it is that okay, let me do it this way. So is that 70%, okay, 70% of all trade that goes on here, like what is going on here, are commodities. Okay, so it's the gold, is the oil, is the diamond, is the steel, or iron ore, cotton, the rest, right? Shea butter, oils, and all those contents. 70% all commodity items, all commodity. Now let's look at it this way. Let's compare commodity versus processed goods. So processed goods are the lady whose company is here making the processed good. What happens is that once you are selling processed goods, what is happening is that processed goods tend to help SMEs, small, medium-sized enterprises. It helps them to create jobs, right? So SMEs tend to be able to what? Job creation, okay? Because this lady probably has a factory line, maybe a small factory line, but she probably may have anywhere from five to 10 people working for her. And these people, because they are working for this lady, they also have the ability to, let's say, pay their kids school fees, take their kids to hospital when they are sick, be able to buy them new clothes, be able to feed them. And it has a cascading effect. So if you're able to do that, that means that this small company is also creating an indirect jobs for other people within the value chain, right? Indirect jobs for other people. So for the seamstress that is sewing their kids' school uniforms, for the clinic that is open nearby, that is taking care of their kids when they are sick, it's creating indirect jobs, right? So the key thing is for Africa to develop, to get to the big level, in terms of development, Africa must speed up the growth of trading between African countries. The reason is that for trading between African countries, I think I showed here, trading between African countries, if 40% of all what they are trading is commodities, then it means the big 60% here is for processed goods or value-added goods, VA goods, value-added, added some value to it, it's gone through maybe some processing. And when for processed goods, you're able to charge a lot more for processed goods than for raw materials. Number two, if we focus only on commodities, or we do not decline our exports of commodities, particularly to outside of Africa, what is going to happen is that commodities are the value or the price of commodities, or like the cocoa, the shea butter, and those things, those prices are not determined by African countries. They are determined by World Trade Organization and a slew of other international trade bodies that determine their prices. And those prices tend to fluctuate like that. So if, let's say, a downturn happens and that commodities pricing just dips or tanks, the countries that are dependent on those revenues from those commodities, they tend to suffer. So anytime the price of gold goes down, countries like Ghana, South Africa, and the rest that produces gold in massive commercial quantities, their income struggle. What the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement seeks to do is remove the tariffs or reduce the tariffs to the barest minimum, so that it makes it attractive for African businesses to trade amongst themselves. Once they're able to trade amongst themselves, the next thing that happens is that there is more trading for processed goods than for commodities. Okay, more trading processed goods than commodities. And I'm just going to show you a contrast with how the rest of the world trades in terms of their own intra-regional trading compared to Africa. So it's quite fascinating. So let's look at Africa. Okay, so Africa, on average, Africa does about 16% of intra-African trade. 16%. That is we trading amongst us, intra-African exports. So one African country exporting to another and the like, right? So that's 16%. Let's look at some of the other regions of the world. What do you do? So the Americas, so intra-American trade, right? So that they do about 55%. Okay, 55%. Let's look at Europe. Europe, that there's a rough estimation of Europe. So if I got a map from Europeans, don't give me a don't give me a whack on the head. Okay, so Europe does 68%. Amazing. And let's look at Asia. Asia does close to 60%. And then the smallest one is the Oceania. They do 7%. That's all these islands in Australia. They do 7%. But look at Africa, very, very paltry. So what the Africa Continental Free Trade seeks to do is to help countries accelerate the rate at which they trade with each other by eliminating tariffs. And then the vision is to grow this 16%, to grow this 16% to let me see, to grow this by the year 2030. Okay, this 16%, it's projected it will rise to 50% of intra-African trade, and that is massive. That will be amazing. So if you are a small business or medium local business, the whole thing is about helping you to be able to scale to other markets between now and 2030, when we are doing 50%. And it's going to be all about processed or value-add items. And what the advantage? The advantage is very simple. The advantage is that there's going to be high demand for industrialized goods in Africa, right? There's going to be high demand. There's also going to be a reduction in the dependency of countries for revenues from commodity items, right? Number three, there's going to be massive job creation opportunities, as you saw. There's going to be massive growth in small, medium sized enterprises. And then come for the countries themselves, they're going to see a massive rise in tax revenues that they can get because businesses are going to grow. So that is the end of this episode. I hope you're able to pick something out of it. I have more episodes coming, and I want you to subscribe to this channel, like it, do all the YouTube stuff, and I will be back again with more great content like this. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this. I appreciate you. Thank you. Bye.